What's up, guys, and welcome back to the infamous project. Who would have known? Well, I should have known better that this whole project of getting this mystery 03 Harley Davidson motor into my silver 2000 Lightning, it was going to be more than just one video. So I nixed the first video off because otherwise it probably would have ended up being like an hour-and-a-half long episode. I know some of you guys like the longer stuff, but it takes time to edit something that's that long, and then to let it render the computer, man, I'd have to let that thing sit there overnight. Anyways, I am going to bring you up to speed on this video and show you guys how I got to pretty much this state, and then maybe it will carry on forward past there. But you can see we have what appears to be a really nice looking motor sitting here behind me, and I am just wrapping up the last few little nitty-gritty items before I go ahead and put this motor into the truck. So you guys are going to want to stay tuned. Once we finish the intro video here, I will take off where we left off from the last video so you guys can see how exactly I got to this part in the project, and then we'll carry forward from there. So stick around. So weekend's over, we're back here, and it's time to do the last preparatory / maintenance items to this 2-valve 5.4 before it goes into my silver Lightning. And that's going to entail new chains, timing chains, new chain tensioners, and new chain guides. So I've got a whole kit here from Chloe's, whatever you want to call it, and we're gonna get those installed. I am going to check out a video that I did the last time that I did this to make sure that I do it right, because I've only done it once and I don't want to screw it up, because, well, timing is a pretty important thing, especially when it comes to these overhead cam motors and everything else. So I'm going to go ahead, tear this down now, go watch that video. I have done this in the past. I don't know if I'm going to go through all the nitty-gritty details. If you guys want to see this, I'm going to refer to the link on the video that I watch in terms of being able to do this. And, you know, he explains it a lot better than me because clearly he's done it a million times. The other thing that's going to get done is a new oil pump that's going to get swapped out as well. So ultimately the oil pan is going to come off as well. So that's where we're at. Let's get zipping this stuff off and we'll be able to see some of the internals of this motor. It's got the tensioner off. You can see here. Again, this could be from sitting, but these rubber gaskets have definitely seen better days. So in 03, Ford switched to this plastic style tensioner, and I know there's a lot of guys out there that are like, if you're doing your tensioners, make sure you go back to the cast ones. Well, my kit didn't come with cast ones, it came with plastic ones, and I get it. The cast ones don't rely on the oil pressure and there's less likely for failure, but the aftermarket ones are going to be built to meet or exceed the OE standard, which is, who knows how long chain guides are supposed to go before they're supposed to be replaced. These ones actually aren't too bad. 120,000 miles, right? I think about 150K to 200,000 miles. These guides are going to have to be replaced anyways, so that'd be most likely when you would change the tensioners again. So with that said, I am just going to go with the plastic ones that came in the kit because the motor's already got 120K on it. Everything has been good, fingers crossed. And I don't know, you could argue it. Don't get me wrong. If I had the cast ones sitting here in my hands, I would install them, but I don't. So we're going with the plastic ones. hard stuff is over. Got all the chains, tensioners, chain guides, all that stuff done. Everything is cleaned up, and went ahead and cleaned out all the areas in the heads here as well. I'll make sure to spray some oil and just get everything lubricated back up. But everything is nice and clean and ready. Even got the timing cover all painted up right here. So gonna go ahead and knock out that front crank seal, and it'll be in a position to get back on. Before I do that, I'm actually gonna drop the oil pan, and I will give that a quick spray. We'll make sure that all the debris, anything else is cleaned up in there. Put the new pan gasket on, and this thing is pretty much going to be in a position to get sealed back up and ready to finally go in the truck. All right, guys, here we are back to where we started the video, and this thing is coming along really nice. I should have known that I would have gone down the rabbit hole. Like, I could have just cleaned things up and done the seals, done the maintenance items and everything else. I did not have to go to the extent of making this thing pretty, especially this truck doesn't even have inner fenders. Like, this thing is going to end up getting dirty the first day that I drive it, which is a little sad when you think about it. But when you're working with clean and freshly painted surfaces and everything else, you know, your hands aren't going to be as dirty when you're putting everything into the truck, and you have peace of mind knowing that things are nice and clean and looking good. So you can see here, everything has been painted up and pretty much detailed. And I was gonna actually paint the valve covers, but then I was like, you know what, I got to give myself a hard stop. So I didn't paint the covers, just cleaned them up. And I cleaned up all the injectors. I tested them, put 12 volts to them, making sure that they were clicking, doing their thing. You can get testers, or you can always pour a little bit of fuel down the top, and when they click, you can see the spray pattern and how they're working. And I went as far as painting up all the cast and cleaning up the fuel rails, everything else. So this thing is coming along really, really nice. And you can see I've got just stuff everywhere here. Cleaned up all my coils. These are, you know, factory replacements that I had from before. Still got our motor mount there. I got to get the oil cooler situation sorted out. But now I've been going over and cleaning up this wiring harness. Just using some super clean and going over it with shop towels and everything else. And then anywhere that there might be a split in the harness tape, I've got harness tape here. And then I have this Scotch Super 33 Plus, which if you guys are ever electrical taping stuff that's going to see weather or see an engine bay, make sure you get good electrical tape. If you get the cheap Harbor Freight or even just the regular electrical tape, it is not going to like the cold weather. It's not going to want to stick properly. So make sure you use a really good tape. So this is actually the harness that came out of the Harley truck. It's in better shape than mine, believe it or not. Mine has a lot of clips that are broken off from over the years, or maybe the brittleness of the heat of when it was in Dubai. And there was one injector plug that never wanted to stay on, so I'd have to like put some goop on it. The only thing wrong with this harness is this one here for the cam sensor, but I'm going to take this connector off my other harness and I will pin it on. So you guys start off with just cleaning the harness and then redoing the connector for the cam sensor. And then while I get involved in that, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to wrap up these other connectors at the front of the motor here. You know what? It's almost like added insurance, throwing another layer, protective layer on here, knowing that this cam position sensor rubbed up on something before. Why not just throw another coating on there and make it look nice at the same time, right? All right, another day working on mystery motor, and we're starting to get some accessory drive components bolted on here. Got a couple idler pulleys, the tensioner, the water pump pulley, and now most importantly, I need to get the crank pulley. But to get the crank pulley off my old motor, I need to get the cage pulley off. And to get the cage pulley off, well, that is a little bit of a nightmare. You can see I've already gone through some iterations of bars and wrenches and hammers, electric impacts, and the flex plate is actually off the back of this motor because I had already bolted it on the back of the 32 valve. So I borrowed the Big Daddy 1/2" Milwaukee from Ricky, and he says it knocks anything off. So let's see if it's gonna knock this pulley loose. Let's see. Remember, this guy is reverse thread. Unreal. Just like that. You're only as good as your tools, folks. Remember that. So, got the lower pulley installed. Everything is good to go there. And now I'm going to go ahead and bolt the intake manifold down. Got our new gaskets right here. So everything's just kind of sitting on top of the motor right now. This is kind of the last step, guys, which is pretty exciting before we can pretty much lift this thing up and get it going into the truck. Now, I didn't install the cage lower yet, just because it sticks out so far. I'm actually gonna wait until the motor is in the truck, and then I'll go ahead and install that. You guys might be wondering, well, why are you installing a cage lower? Why don't you go to, say, something like this? Well, the reason for that is because the tune on the truck is already set up for a pretty much stock motor with my Kenny Bell set up with the way that it was. And I'm gonna start off with that and make sure that everything is running good and everything is working. And I did have a 4-pound lower on with my Kenny Bell before, but it was running out of fuel up in the top end on the dyno. So we went ahead and dropped the boost back down by using the cage lower. So I have actually a brand new air motive pump sitting right here. Once everything is running and things are working well, I'll swap out the pump, we'll get some more fuel delivery, and maybe I'll consider swapping out that lower. But for now, the cage lower will do. So gonna go ahead now, get these intake manifold gaskets installed, which are underneath this guy. So we'll pull all this stuff out, get the gaskets on, get our torque sequence done. I'll have to look that up and see what it is and all those specs, make sure, because we don't want any leaks. Anytime you guys have boosted applications, you want to avoid leaks at all costs. I'll be reusing the steel gaskets. I've got these all scuffed down and ready, and I am actually going to use a little bit of gasket maker in between these because this is probably the 5th time they're being reused, and I favor these over the aftermarket Fel Pro ones. I don't know. I just feel like that skim coated gasket maker, you have nothing to worry about other than the fact if you need to peel the stuff off, you have a little bit more of a headache to clean in terms of getting stuff all cleaned up and ready. But this way is the for sure thing, at least in my opinion. We all have our own ways of doing things. So enough of me rambling, time to get these gaskets on. All right, guys, spark plug time. Check our gap. Got the NGK TR6s, and we want to be somewhere between 36 and 38, and that is good all the way up to about, I think, 14 pounds of boost. So I recommend you run these, I believe on the chart is from 10 pounds and above. And then once you start getting past the designated area, they usually make you start closing up the gap a little bit just to compensate for the additional boost so you don't blow out your spark. We're not over torquing these spark plugs. I actually could have installed these before installing the intake, but sometimes we just like to do things the hard way, right? Finally, we got this thing to a point where we can get it into the truck. So as much as the accessories are on, we got the lower intake manifold on, we got our spark plugs, coils, everything is torqued down to spec. The intercooler is just sitting on top for now, just to keep things clear and closed from the elements, because when you torque the intercooler down, it's really just got these 4 independent bolts in the back here, and then the rest is all straight through the blower itself. So all that'll get torqued down. We'll get those gaskets in place when we're ready to do all that. And now it's really just going to be moving some stuff around. So gonna have to, actually first things first, I need to get that motor mount down there out. I know the camera's a little dark right now, but I feel like it is easier to get the motor located and placed with that guy out. I've sort of learned that with my trial and error of going back and forth and everything here. So we'll pop that out, clean some stuff up down there just to make things more friendly to work with. And what else do I have to do? I have to fix my transmission harness, which saw a little bit of one of the headers and threw my transmission into limp mode once upon a time. So make sure to get that fixed up. And we got to get the flex plate off this guy and bolted onto that motor. But of course we can't do that until that motor is off the stand. So we'll have to have both motors over here. Going to try and move some cars out of the way and make some room. And we're going to be on the home stretch now of getting this thing set in. Am I going to video me putting everything in? I don't know, maybe time lapse. Again, you guys have seen in and out of this truck so many times. There's really not going to be anything new to see here. I just want to get it in, get everything bolted up, and see if that thing is going to fire. So stay tuned, because we're getting to the home stretch finally. All right, update time. I made serious progress last night and got like all the motor mount stuff, the torque converter nuts on and all those good things. And then I had to record my podcast with Castle Customs, and we had Joe, aka Scream Puff, on there as well. And that was a really good time. We bullshitted for like 3.5 hours. And then even when we were done recording, we kept going. And then I left because I was the guy on the earliest time zone. Everybody else, or the latest time zone, I should say. So God knows how long they spent. Shit, they could still be on the phone right now. But here we are, and I have just finished all the underside stuff on the swap. And I cannot reiterate how much work these damn 5.4s are. I just don't get it. Anyways, I got the oil cooler lines hooked up, power steering pumps on, AC compressors on, got all the headers bolted up. So these are Cook's long tubes on here, and they're a challenge. Once you've had them on and off a couple times, you learn a couple tricks, and that's important. But your first time around, you're gonna be hating your life. O2 sensors hooked up, got all the exhaust and the collectors bolted on, and what else? Oil filters on, made sure the drain plug and the oil pan is tight. Got my oil pressure sending unit all hooked up. So we're pretty much good to go on the underside. So now I can put the truck down and focus on getting the top end of the motor all put back on. Blower and plenum is sitting down there on the ground, so that should be pretty straightforward. And I think I'm gonna be able to actually see if this thing fires up today, which is pretty exciting. So gonna get the truck down and just go at connecting everything here, all the coolant lines in the back for the core, for the intercooler. I got to get the accessory belt on, then we'll get the cage pulley bolted on and the pulley bridge and do all that stuff. And I'm really like fingers crossed everything is going to work, because you know, I could have cheated a little bit, maybe not hooked up all the exhaust and just kind of bolted the blower and everything on and made sure that it would fire up. But again, fingers crossed that everything is going to be good to go here. So that's pretty much it. Not going to time lapse it. I lost one of my GoPro batteries, don't know where it went, so I'm kind of running on reserves, guys. But you've seen this happen before. If you haven't seen it before, check out the video and me and Mr. Notorious put the motor that blew up in. That's sitting on the stand over there. So you guys can check that video out if you want, but we'll check back in here once everything is on. And I really, really hope I'll be driving this thing by the end of the weekend. All right, so about 4 hours later, I've got everything back together. I have not been this nervous in a long, long time. Like, more nervous than any job interview I've gone to, more nervous than, I don't even know. There's just so many variables from the motor that we do not know. We just know the best that we could based on, you know, going through the compression tests and all those other things, doing due diligence and maintenance items as the chain guides, the tensioners, new oil pump, all of those things. And here we are ready to test it out. So like I said, just having all the bad luck from before, then adding the variable of the unknown, and then, you know, second guessing all your work. Because if anybody tells you that they never second guess something, you know, when they've worked and done so much changes to their motor or drivetrain, they'd be lying to you. So I've double checked everything, even got the accessory drive and the belts, and everything is on here. The power steering pump is leaking down at the bottom fitting, which I had that issue before. For the sake of firing this thing up, I do not care. It can leak away. I think I got all the vacuum lines sorted out, and there's no coolant in it right now. I just, you know, before I commit to, not like I haven't committed a couple $1,000 trying to get this together and running, but before I dump a bunch of coolant in it, I want to see if this thing fires up. So the crank sensor is in fact disconnected. So that way I can turn the motor over and hopefully we'll see oil pressure build on the gauge. Hopefully it'll turn over, number one. So crank it over a bunch. If we see oil pressure, then I'll plug the crank position sensor back in and hit the key, and we'll see what happens. So first things first, let's connect the battery. I don't even know if this is a good battery, to be honest with you. I had it on the tender for quite a while, and it's staying on red. So we'll have to see here. See my nice mess of tools. I should have kept the 8mm out. So we'll go ahead and tighten that down. You got to remember, we switched wiring harnesses. Like, there's been a lot that's been swapped around here. Oh, I was messing around with that. Now, popped off on me. Needs to be perfect, guys. Needs to be perfect. There we go. Oh, there's like no juice. I think that battery is beyond toasted. All right, stole the battery from ditch number 9 over there. It was the quickest and easiest thing to get to. Our gauge is reset here. All right, oh, don't worry about that. I did this last time. It wouldn't build the pressure. Oh, I saw it in the Ford Tex videos, and seemed to work for him. But I don't know. It's like maybe it's just not turning over fast enough. Anyways, I'm hooking up the sensor and I'm going for it. Runs. Got lots of oil pressure. We've got a little bit of a weird rattle. I don't know what it is. Like, it doesn't like, it's not scaring me off, like loud knocking inside the motor. Like, it was just the power steering pump making noise. Threw some ATF in the reservoir, and we seem to be good so far here. So I think I'll commit, get some coolant in this thing, and we'll get it right up to temperature, and be good to test it out. I'm super stoked, guys. Mystery motor working. Just burning off some other stuff here. Oh my God, I am so relieved. I'm gonna have a victory beer, and man, I need to go pick up some distilled water so that I can get that in there, so that way we can keep the cooling system clean. Don't just use tap water. Definitely don't use well water. If you have high calcium or any of those things, please do not put that water in your cooling system. So there we have it. I'm gonna air up this tire. We'll get the coolant that I do have in here. And man, I can put the hood on, put the front bumper back on, and drive this thing around. So there you have it, victory, at least so far. You know, for this thing to just fire right up, it means I did the timing right. It means that, you know, I don't see any big puddles of oil underneath it, other than that little bit of leak from the power steering pump, which I already knew that was there. So there we go. I'm going to air myself out a little bit. Thank you guys for following along and joining me on this victory. All I wanted for Christmas was my 2000 Silver Lightning to run again, and here it is.